Anthropic has released Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5, and the useful way to evaluate this release is through 4 numbers: capability, access, price, and risk controls. The release breaks into 2 products. Claude Fable 5 is the public Mythos class model. Claude Mythos 5 is the restricted version available to approved customers through Project Glasswing and trusted access programs. Both were announced on June 9, 2026. Fable 5 is the version most developers, companies, and paid Claude users will actually test. Mythos 5 is the version security partners and select researchers get when Anthropic is willing to remove some safeguards in approved contexts. Fable 5 is generally available through the Claude API, Claude Code, Claude Platform on AWS, Amazon Bedrock, Google Vertex AI, and Microsoft Foundry. The context window is large, 1 million tokens by default, with up to 128,000 output tokens. That puts Fable 5 in the category of models built for long work, not quick chat only. Think code-based migration, multi-document analysis, legal packet review, financial research, incident reconstruction, long-running agent tasks, and visual reasoning across complex material. The price is $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens. The pricing immediately tells you how to use it. Do not route every small summary to Fable 5. Reserve it for work where missing context is expensive, where long reasoning changes the result, or where a cheaper model keeps failing. Now the benchmark picture. The most direct public numeric benchmark set around this model class comes from Anthropic's Project Glasswing and Mythos preview materials. Fable 5 and Mythos 5 are newer releases, and Anthropic says Mythos 5 is comparable to or somewhat stronger than Mythos preview in most cases. Now, let's look at the benchmark story carefully. Anthropic's launch post says, Claude Fable 5 is the most capable model it has ever made generally available. The company claims it is state-of-the-art on nearly all tested benchmarks, with strong performance in software engineering, knowledge work, vision, scientific research, and long-running tasks. The public launch post gives several practical examples. First, Fable 5 performs better as tasks get longer and more complex. Second, in software engineering, Stripe reported that Fable 5 completed a codebase-wide migration in a 50 million line Ruby codebase in 1 day. Anthropic says the same work would have taken a team more than 2 months by hand. Third, on Cognition's frontier code evaluation, which focuses on production quality code rather than simple correctness, Anthropic says Fable 5 scores highest among frontier models, even at medium effort. Fourth, in finance and knowledge work, Anthropic says Fable 5 leads Hebbia's senior-level finance benchmark, with gains in document reasoning, chart and table interpretation, and problem solving. Fifth, in vision, Anthropic says Fable 5 can extract precise numbers from scientific figures, rebuild web app source code from screenshots, and complete Pokemon Fire Red using a minimal vision-only setup. Sixth, for long context and memory, Anthropic says Fable 5 stays focused across millions of tokens and benefits more from persistent nodes than Opus 4.8 in its Slay the Spire test. So Anthropic is positioning Fable 5 as its strongest generally available model, especially for long, complex, engineering-heavy and document-heavy work. But for hard numeric benchmark claims, use the numbers shown directly on screen from Anthropic's own benchmark table and label them as Anthropic reported results. This is the hard benchmark context. The improvement is not isolated to one narrow test. The strongest gains show up in coding, terminal tasks, multimodal software work, multilingual software work, tool-based reasoning, and cybersecurity reproduction. There are caveats. Some SWE bench scores have memorization screen notes. The multimodal SWE bench result uses Anthropic's internal implementation, so it should not be treated as directly comparable to every public leaderboard. And Anthropic itself notes that humanity's last exam may contain some memorization signal for Mythos. The second practical story is security. This is where Mythos 5 is restricted. Anthropic's earlier Mythos preview work showed why. In Project Glasswing materials, Anthropic says Mythos preview found thousands of high-severity vulnerabilities, including vulnerabilities in every major operating system and every major web browser. The examples include a 27-year-old OpenBSD vulnerability, a 16-year-old FFmpeg vulnerability, and a Linux kernel exploit chain that could move from ordinary user access to full machine control. In the Red Team write-up, Anthropic also says Mythos Preview developed working Firefox JavaScript shell exploits 181 times in a rerun experiment, where Opus 4.6 succeeded only twice out of several hundred attempts. It also reported 29 additional cases with register control. On the OSS Fuzz style evaluation, Opus class models reached severe crash tiers only rarely, while Mythos Preview reached full control flow hijack on 10 separate fully patched targets. Those numbers explain the release structure. Fable 5 is public because it has safeguards. Mythos 5 is restricted because the same class of capability without those safeguards can be extremely powerful in cyber work. For Fable 5, the safeguards cover cybersecurity, biology and chemistry, and distillation. If a request triggers those classifiers, the response can be handled by Claude Opus 4.8 instead. Anthropic says the safeguards trigger in less than 5% of sessions on average, meaning more than 95% of Fable sessions do not fall back at all. That operating number is important. Most ordinary usage should stay on Fable 5, but teams working near security, biology, chemistry, or model research boundaries need to expect routing changes. For developers, the API detail is simple but important. A refusal is returned as a successful HTTP 200 response with stop_reason set to refusal. That means your application cannot treat every 200 response as a completed task. You need to log the model, refusal state, fallback state, token usage, latency, and final output type. For billing, Anthropic says you are not billed for a request refused before output is generated. If you retry on another model, fallback credit can refund the prompt cache cost of switching. Now the buyer's read. If you are a developer, test Fable 5 on the tasks where the benchmark profile says it should be strongest. First, long code migrations. Give it a real migration brief, constraints, target architecture, and rollback requirements. Second, production code review. Do not ask whether the code looks good. Ask for correctness issues, missing tests, edge cases, operational risk, and whether the patch would be mergeable. Third, terminal or tool-heavy tasks. The terminal bench result suggests the model class is strong when it needs to reason through an environment, not just answer from text. Fourth, multimodal engineering. Give it screenshots, diagrams, tables, and source context together. Fifth, financial or legal document analysis. Ask it to separate facts from assumptions, extract numbers from tables, and show where each claim comes from. Do not waste the first test on a generic prompt. Test the work that already costs your team hours. If you are an enterprise buyer, the evaluation checklist is even more concrete. Anthropic says Fable 5 and Mythos 5 are covered models with 30-day retention and are not available under zero data retention. At $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens, you need workload level cost tracking. If you operate in cyber, biology, chemistry, or model research, classify your use cases before rollout. A stronger model can still be wrong, require citations, source references, test results, or human review for high-impact workflows. Put Fable 5 behind a routing layer. Use cheaper models for simple summarization and classification. Use Fable 5 where the longer context and stronger reasoning pay for themselves. The clean conclusion is this: Claude Fable 5 is the public release to test. Claude Mythos 5 is the restricted release to watch. Fable 5 then takes that Mythos class capability and wraps it with safeguards for general use. The model is not priced for casual chat. It is priced for high-value work: code-based migration, production review, long context analysis, financial reasoning, multimodal engineering, and complex agent tasks. For most viewers, the practical move is not to chase Mythos 5 access. It is to test Fable 5 against your hardest real workflow. Measure whether it saves review time and check whether the result is verifiable.